As Jen said, I'm Cathy Wright, and we're going to get into a little bit more introduction here in just a minute. I want to thank Key Leadership Program for hosting the webinar and providing this opportunity to share some content that I'm passionate about. So I'm really excited to be here. What I want to do is start right off and get you all really involved and engaged in a little poll, and just to give us a sense of what is your state of mind right at this moment as we launch into our webinar today. So I'm seeing lots of people click in. It looks like we've got the majority of people so far are above the line. So at +1 or +2, even some +3 people are so excited to be here. That's awesome. And a few people down below the line. This is kind of, I think, a little bit part of our new normal, having a lot of uncertainty in our world and leading to these feelings of not knowing what's coming, some anxiety and some stress. We've even got people that are experimenting with the technology and using the pencil to actually handwrite where they are above and below the line. So thank you all for participating. For those of you who might be joining by telephone and you don't have access to the toolbar, or you're just listening in, there is a series of worksheets that are downloadable, and you can follow along there. They're available for you if you want to take notes, and you'll have them after the session as well. So you can follow a link to those that Jen has posted in the chat. Look at all these great responses we have already. Thank you all for checking in, some of you Xing in, some of you circling, and I'm glad to see a majority of us are above the line today. So hopefully, as we go forward with the session today, everybody will move up above the line and be feeling really energized and happy and calm. And we're going to talk a little bit more about state of mind as we move forward. Thank you all for participating. So as Jen said, I'm Cathy Wright. I am a coach with the Key program. I've been doing that for a couple years, and I've been teaching as an adjunct faculty for the past 6 years. Primary focus is on team building, collaboration. I teach courses on org change, leading an inspired culture, also dealing with complexity, which I think we can all relate to in the environment we're in today. And in addition, my primary role is as president of New Ground Consulting Group, where I focus on leading organizational change, but really zeroing in on leadership development and helping people and organizations cultivate untapped potential to help propel them forward to their higher purpose and their vision. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. So I'm really pleased to be here with you. I'll share some stories, some experience, some content and tools, a lot of which draws on the, coming up on 30 years now that I've been working in this organizational change space, and probably the last 10 years almost exclusively in the federal sector. So I've gotten to work with lots of your agencies and gotten a really good sense of the challenges that many of you face as you work in this very complex world that is exacerbated by the fact that we're in a bureaucracy and that we have essentially our board of directors is 535 congressional leaders, all with their own agendas. So tremendous complexity that you all are dealing with. So I'm excited to be with you. Let's take a look at our agenda. So we're going to be really about what I refer to as centered leadership and actionable authenticity. We'll talk about what that means. We're going to double back on state of mind and why that matters. We're going to spend a good amount of time today thinking about and having you reflect and do some exercises around values, mission, and vision, and ultimately what matters most to you. And I want you to be thinking about this in kind of one of two contexts, or if you're really accomplished, both contexts. But you can either think about this content as a leader of a team, a leader of a project, a leader of yourself working in this federal sector. And you can also think of yourself, big picture, human being on this earth, right? So in that context of who am I, why am I here? Kind of depends how deep you want to go, but the approaches and the tools we're going to look at really work well in either context. And I think a lot of us today in this environment are finding ourselves maybe doing a little bit more self-reflection and reassessing priorities. So hopefully these tools will help you in that way as well. So as I said, we'll spend some time on self-awareness reflection And then I'm going to introduce you to a couple of tools that I've found really powerful. The whole self window, which you see behind me, is my version of sort of that wheel of life. And then we'll also talk about some approaches where you can really take the direction and the focus that you have landed on and move to action effectively. And we'll wrap up with a question and answer, and I'll stick around as long as anybody has questions and until Jen cuts me off and tells me I'm done. So in terms of our outcomes for today, what I really want is to give you food for thought and for reflection. It is lunchtime here on the East Coast, so this will hopefully give you something to chew on. I know, really bad pun. I really want to give you tools that you can use immediately, either in your workplace or in your own life situation that you'll find useful. Share some approaches I've found very impactful personally. And then we want to leverage this technology for interactivity and create actually connection, sort of as a community for this next hour, hour and a half. So as Jen said, we'll be doing polling, which lets us kind of see what's the lean of the group. We'll have lots of opportunities to have you annotate on the screen so you can share ideas and thoughts and reactions and thumbs up and that sort of thing. We will do breakout rooms. We're going to have 2 breakout rooms, which is really kind of fun and different. Thanks to our Zoom technology, it will send you all to rooms. We'll work in small groups of about 6 or 5 minutes or so. So it's a little bit different way to experience the technology that Zoom allows us. And we'll let you have some discussion in those rooms and then report out. Also, always you can speak out, as Jen said, raise your hand and she'll call on you to ask a question or put the question in chat. And I just want to mention again, there are worksheets that will provide a place if you want to take notes, but they're takeaway sheets that have exercises you can use personally, or certainly you can apply and use with your team. So if you haven't had a chance to go in chat, you can download those and print those out and have a handy little follow along packet for you. And as we mentioned, we'll do a question and answer at the end of the session. So that's kind of what we're all about today. And again, I'm really excited and thank you for joining. So what I want to do now is use our annotate feature that Jen described just a moment ago. And I want you to think about what are the words or images. So if you're feeling artistic today and you want to like draw something, have at it. So I want you to just grab that annotate tool. It should enable you to type in responses, to make marks if you like, or to actually grab the pen and draw. And the question is, what words or images come to mind when you think of leading from center? So what does that phrase mean to you? Perfect. It means your values. Maybe it means you're a star, right? I see a star. If you're leading from center, you're being a star. So I'm going to interpret that way. Somebody's taking the pen and making that, oh, great, it's grounded. Absolutely. When we lead from center, we were fully grounded. We feel connected to the land we stand on and to the work that we're doing. It's about a 360-degree view, absolutely. Authenticity and integrity, beautifully said. I'm thinking someone has just drawn us a butterfly, maybe. So maybe we're feeling free and airy and beautiful and happy. Look at the smiley face. You guys have lots of artistic talent out there. A couple people chiming in with, it's about being present, right? It's about really being in the moment, aware of who I am, where I am, and also to that higher purpose of what I want to be doing. Great responses. Oh, it's also calm. Nice. We'll come back to that as well. Thank you all so much for participating. It's great seeing all of those responses, and you're all correct. It's also about caring, maybe leading from heart as well. These are great. Being present, yes. Staying, good. What you will not give up, being true to what your values are. Beautifully said, everybody. Also thinking about the future, being real. Fantastic. Intently focused, grounded. This is great. Thank you all so much. All right, Jen, if you will, grab that screenshot for us. I don't want to lose any of these great nuggets of wisdom. So thank you. And we're going to scoot on here So when we talk about leading from center, it's exactly what you all said. This is about, it's an action verb, right? So leading from center is about being centered and calm and present. And it's also about action, right? So it's about moving forward in a direction and a course that we have set, that we have tremendous clarity about. So it's about being a channel for that. And as we think about leadership in general, it's about going in advance, right? Leaders go first. And then when we think about centering, it's a source from which something originates. When we think about leadership and center in the same context, it's about being centered from within as a leader. And I want to clarify here, when we talk about leader, I'm talking about people who lead others. So maybe they have direct reports, they have a team of people. I'm also talking about people who are leading a project or a task or a program, and they have to lead through influence, which sometimes is even more difficult, right? I don't have position power, I just have influence. And also leading ourselves. I may not have a direct report, I may not be leading a project, but I have responsibility for myself and how I lead my life. So any of those categories, in my view, we all have leadership within us, and we're all leaders in some capacity. So I just wanted to clarify that. So leading from center is very much all the things that you said. And as I think about it, when I am leading from center, it feels like this. It is in the zone, in that space where I am so grounded in who I am and what I'm doing, and so gratified that I'm being able to be in service of others and in service of a higher purpose. It's that, oh, that feeling. Hopefully you've had that feeling at some point in your work life, in your private life. It's pretty doggone amazing. So to get to the place where we're leading from center requires what I refer to as actionable authenticity. Actionable authenticity. It's both and, right? So the authenticity comes from us having powerful awareness about ourselves, who we are, our gifts, our strengths. It's also about, as we say in the South, being aware of warts and all, right? Sometimes being aware of blind spots. So having that level of awareness about ourselves, also having situational awareness, right? So understanding what's going on with the people I lead, what's going on in the work environment, and having awareness of where am I going, right? What is the vision I'm striving for? So sometimes I feel like the kitten looking into the mirror, and sometimes I feel like the lion, right? If you look at that image. And the other aspect of actionable authenticity is forward motion. Am I making things happen? Am I advancing? Am I moving forward myself and my team in the direction of the vision I've articulated? So those are kind of the two key components of actionable authenticity. What I want us to come back to now is just for a moment, this notion of state of mind. And I want to thank Corinthus Consulting and Alexander Calais for their permission to use these slides and this content. I really like this notion of state of mind because it is a core part of our awareness, right? Where am I in any given moment? And the definition here I like very much. Our state of mind shifts from moment to moment, right? When you all signed in with your sign in when we did the quick poll, that was where you were at that moment in time. An hour later, you may be somewhere else. Early this morning when you got up and your world was chaos, you were probably somewhere below the line. So it's this moment to moment experience of how we're experiencing life, and it's generated by what we're thinking, what are the thoughts in my head, and as those translate into my emotions and are expressed as feelings, that's our state of mind, okay? And so what I wanted to share with you, this work from Corinthus that I think is really powerful. They did a study with 750 leaders from all over the world. And what they wanted to understand from that study was, how do leaders experience these different states of mind? How often do they experience them? And what's the impact? So how does their state of mind impact performance and how they manage, both and, right? So performance and their own leadership. And what they came up with is this really nice, simple, straightforward, numerical chart. So when we want to be thinking about state of mind, I love using this with a team, for example. If we share this simple graphic, maybe this is your first tool for your toolbox, but if we share this simple graphic with our teams and we want to start a meeting and say, hey, let's check in with everybody. What's your state of mind? People can say, I'm a +2, I'm a -3, I'm a whatever it is. You have to go into a lot of detail about what they're feeling, what their state of mind is or why, but it kind of gives us a way to get a pulse on where people are, which then adds to our contextual awareness, right? What kind of meeting are we going to have when we've got everybody below the line, everybody above the line? It's a really helpful framework that I think has real value in our workplaces today as we think about it. And what I want to ask now is, if you would think about, you understand what state of mind is, obviously. Why does it matter? So use your annotate tool and chime in here on this gilded framework and tell us, why do you think state of mind matters to us as leaders of self and others? What difference does it make if I'm the boss and I'm in a foul mood, right? Why do I care, right? How impactful is my state of mind as a leader? What difference does it make, right? So it's about self-awareness, right? It's about having the ability to pause, to take a breath. Exactly, here on the screen, it sets the tone. What we know about leaders is their state of mind is contagious, right? When we're in the mode of leading, of being the person in power, either through our position or through the level of influence, people are watching, right? So that we very much are setting the tone by our own state of mind. Great feedback here. It impacts our relationships. This is one of the biggest areas that people in the study reference. They said, if you stay below the line as a leader too long, you negatively impact those relationships, right? So it's also about, how do I pull myself up? Okay, I love this. If mama ain't happy, no one is happy. Love it, right? And so true. If you think about, mama is like the boss, right? If the boss ain't happy, nobody's happy. It mirrors behaviors, absolutely. Our state of mind sets the atmosphere. It determines, I love these in the lower left, it determines if we're going to be less reactive or more reactive, right? Mirrors behaviors, it impacts relationships, as you said. It shades your perceptions. Great point. We think about our state of mind as like a lens that we're looking through, and it is either open or it's closed. It's defining to a large degree what information we're letting in and how much information. Great answers. It's balance, right? State of mind is that place of balance, and it's infectious. I love it. We talk about leadership. State of mind is contagious. We want to make sure it's the right kind of contagious, not the COVID contagious. Okay. So, right state of mind. Great input, everybody. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments there. If we can screenshot those, Jen, thank you. The state of mind research. So just a little bit more about what they found. When they talked to these leaders about state of mind, they found that 94% said chi, which is calm, happy, and energized, the ones you see highlighted there in green, calm, happy, and energized. They said that those three states of mind drove the greatest levels of both effectiveness and performance, which makes sense, obviously. Also, interestingly, 65 to 75% of those leaders indicated one of those three or all of those three. They said they access those states of mind often or regularly. I would love to be working with a boss that accessed those states of mind 100% of the time, but probably not possible. But to have a leader that's hitting those marks 75% of the time would be pretty impressive, I think. Interestingly, 60 to 75% hit chi regularly or often. 20 to 40% said regularly and often. They were in fats land, and I don't mean body fat. I mean fats. Frustrated, anxious, tired, and stressed. Anybody out there relate to that? Can relate to all of those, right? Easy to fall into that place of frustration and stress, especially in the environment we find ourselves in today, especially in federal government, where we've got a lot of bosses helping us define the direction that we're heading or trying to. So 20 to 40% often experiencing fats. And what the leaders said is that when they were stressed, tired, anxious, or frustrated, it could positively impact performance. It could, to some degree. If you think about, if you're in a meeting and the boss comes in obviously frustrated, it's going to be a little contagious, right? But as a team member, we might also say, what could I do to alleviate the frustration? Boss seems stressed. I could be thinking, well, maybe if I do my tasks I'm assigned and do that well, it will alleviate some of that stress, right? So we take our cues from the leader. So sometimes being below the line can be really positive for a leader, right? I've had leaders tell me, I was mad and I wanted to make darn sure my team knew I was mad, right? Then maybe it was very effective. But what the leaders in the study also said is that staying below the line has a detrimental effect if we stay there too long, too much, particularly on relationships, on relationships. It's hard on our relationships. So the challenge for us as leaders is recognize we're going to go below the line. We all do, right? We're human. It's not to say we've got to stay above that line all the time. Below line state of minds are a perfectly natural thing, right? So know that, and at the same time recognize being aware of situation, being self-aware is where we want to think about what is going to serve me best, what state of mind is going to serve me best based on what I'm trying to get done, okay? And what we want to look at on this chart, interestingly, there are different domains when we can apply state of mind. So in this example, we're looking at collaboration. So let's say I'm going into a situation where we're going to have high levels of collaboration, okay? And I think about if I'm up here at a +3, I'm having one of those amazing days, I'm going into a collaborative situation, I'm excited. So coming at collaboration, being at that level, above G even, I might be inclined to say, well, I'm going to take more risk in this place, and that could be good. I could challenge each other more. That's a plus. I might also come across as overzealous, right? So I've got so much energy and enthusiasm in this place of high passion. I could come across like a bulldozer running over people, or I could overcommit. I could try to take on too much. So the reason I want to put this on your radar is to think about, you can train yourself to take a pause going into a situation, a leadership situation, a meeting, to say, oh, okay, I need to be calm. I need to recognize that right now I'm way up here, but to be as effective as I can in this collaborative environment, I might need to take a breath and come down to just a +1, maybe a +2. So it's not to say the top of the chart is always best at all. It's to say we can be anywhere on the spectrum, and what we want to do is try to align where we are with what's going to serve us and our organizations best, okay? So a couple of other things I just want to hit on quickly. Other findings is variability. So they acknowledge that when they talk to people about state of mind, it varies wildly. It varies from moment to moment. It varies situation to situation. It varies depending on what's going on in the external environment, et cetera, et cetera. And in the course of a day, we may be through multiple states of mind, okay? It's also important to note that the personal lens, I think we talked about that with one of the things that you all wrote up on the screen. It's the lens through which we view the world, and that lens colors how we experience things. So I may have two similar events, 2 different days. If I come with a different state of mind, I'm going to experience those differently. And that experience is going to drive my impact, how my state of mind is reaching other people and how they're perceiving that, okay? So here's what I want to do next. I want to have you all talking with each other a little bit about what you know about state of mind, okay? So I want you, first of all, just reflect for a moment. In fact, if you have the worksheets in front of you, or you were able to print those out, we're on the very first worksheet. Questions 1, 2, 3 are about what is state of mind. And I want you to just jot down there, or if you're just making notes on a sheet of paper, jot down why you think state of mind matters. Why does it matter? And more importantly, and the question I want you to talk about as we go to your first breakout room is, what do you do to create an above the line state of mind? So if you think about yourself, maybe just yesterday, maybe just this morning, whenever it was, when you find yourself below the line, right, experiencing some of those states of mind like tired, stressed, anxious, maybe distressed, worried, frustrated, what do you do to pull yourself up above the line? How do you do it? Okay. So that's what I want you to think about for just a minute. How do you, in your day-to-day world and your day-to-day getting through life, how do you create an above the line state of mind? It sounds like it should be a song, doesn't it? Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I got to pop into a breakout room. We had great dialogue. So I'm curious to hear from you all. Who would be interested and brave to share your voice on our webinar and let us know what you heard in your breakout session? Jen, do you have any hands getting raised or any brave volunteers chiming in on chat?
We don't have anything so far, but if anyone, we have George Reese. I'm going to unmute George Reese, our very own George Reese.
Yes, hi, everybody. I'm George. I'm a staff member with Key, so I work with Cathy and Jen a lot. Our group, we talked about perspective and gratitude, thinking about how grateful we are and the perspective of our situations. And also appreciation, particularly working with smart people.
Wow, great. George, thank you so much for sharing. Did I see another hand go up, Jen?
Hi, my name is Kay Angela Gomazulu, and I was in a breakout session with Sean. There were other people that weren't able to come up, they were mute. So, but what we talked about was how do we create an above the line, state of mind, say if we drop below the line. And Sean had said, we actually were similar in what we came up with, but she said that, she thinks about herself and looks at others and say, hey, I'm better off. I could be, worse off. And that, she will either, we either not distract ourselves, but find something else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, check in with our energy and see, where we are, or talk to someone else if it's something that's keeping us down. And typically we elevate. And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Kay. Really
Thank
sounds
you.
like good dialogue. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
We also have one more from Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. We had an issue with the mute as well, so there were two people in my group that commented. One person said they'd like to stay positive, focus on what they're trying to get out of either the meeting or the exchange. Take a walk around to clear their head. Someone said jokingly, a strong drink, tequila, for example. just joking. And then review the emails and talking points. So anything you can do in preparation before going into a meeting or exchange to sort of, so you won't be caught off guard, that would be good. And then finally, someone said they always carry water and a snack with them. Sometimes when we're hungry or tired or thirsty, we tend to be a little bit more irritable. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, so much. Great feedback. Really great discussion in our group as well. And the group touched on, Sue and Keisha touched on humor, reflecting on things we're grateful for, just taking time to reflect on that. Being anchored in our spirituality, whatever our spirituality may be, but finding strength and centering in that alone. And also having self-awareness, right? To know what are the things that trigger me, so that I can be prepared to not let them work, not let them actually get me hooked. So great discussion, you all. Thank you so much, everybody. And if that was your first Zoom breakout room, it's a little bit weird, right? It's sort of like being transported. I think about the Twilight Zone or something like that. Anyway, thank you so much, all of you, for participating. Okay, so Jen, I'm going back to screen share, correct?
Correct. And we do have a
Okay.
few questions for you that we can ask now or wait until the end.
Sure, let's go ahead.
So a number of folks have written and they're very moved by the data you've been sharing, and they'd like to know where they can access the data from this research, and is the research on effectiveness above or below the line validated across cultures? Is it US centric?
Oh, great question. Two-part. It is not US centric. The 750 leaders were from around the globe. I don't have the breakdown in terms of percentages from where, but it was very global centric, not US centric. And there is a couple of articles in your worksheet, I think, on the last page. There's an article cited in there from Alexander Calais that was in Harvard Business Review, and the links provided on the additional resources page. If you want to shoot me an email as well, my contact information is at the end of the slides, and you're welcome to email me and I'll send that directly to you as well. Great question, thank you. Other questions, Jen?
No, that's it. We just have some folks who were unable to raise their hand to share their voice, and they were just sharing things such as, when you consider others' hardships and realize yours aren't as bad, it helps. And then also sometimes you just have to let feelings run their course.
Yeah.
You have to feel it and let it go.
Right. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating and sharing your ideas. So really important. So when we find ourselves below the line and we want to get above the line, the first thing to do is notice, right? I have to be aware that, oh, I've slipped below the line. And then we have to shift. And all of the things that you all talked about are excellent tools to help us make the shift. Also just breathing, right? Just being able to, oh, realize I've been triggered, or, oh, my anxiety's up, and take a few deep kind of calming breaths can really help. And then the last tip that Alexander shares is share, right? So if I'm a leader and I have I'm really having trouble getting back above the line, to be the type of leader that's able to articulate that and just say to the team, hey, team, I'm sorry, I'm really frustrated today. This happened, whatever an event may have been, and to just let the team know that you're working to get back. And being that little bit vulnerable is what Patrick Lencioni, who wrote 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he talks about that sort of the foundation to building effective teams is having trust. And in order for us to have really strong trust on teams, we have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable, particularly as the leader, to be willing to let people see behind our leadership facade of always certain and sure and proud, to let people know, you know, what's concerning us, what's taking us off center, and being willing to share that in an authentic way.
Cathy?
Can be really powerful. Yes.
Cathy, you'll need to share your screen again. I think there's been a delay or it didn't take.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting.
No worries.
Please.
Notice,
Perfect.
shift, and share. So that's what I was just talking about. So the first thing in shifting is to notice where I am. I've fallen below the line. To pull out one of those tools you all just talked about, shift myself back above. And if you're really struggling to make that shift, to be a leader who's willing to be a little bit vulnerable, you don't have to throw open the kimono, just a little peek, to share with your team a little bit what's going on, and in that way solicit support and just make your way back above the line when you can. Okay. So another thing I want to share with you briefly, this again, if you're using the handouts on the first page, there's a space to kind of map this out. This is a quick little tool you can use to track your own state of mind. It's not something you need to broadcast to people. You can just kind of have it in your little notebook where you keep notes and whatnot during the day. But the notion is, on the left-hand side, write your +3, +2, +1, -1, 2, 3 at the bottom, that center line across the horizontal center. And then to event 1 might be a staff meeting I started my day with. And you can assess, where was I in my state of mind when I went in? I was a +1. Gosh, by the end of the day, I was at a +2. And that gives you data that you can then ask yourself, well, what shifted? You know, what helped me move? What was going on there? By the same token, if you look at event 2, maybe that was a meeting with my boss. I started the meeting checked out, I stayed checked out. Well, you can go back and reflect on that and say, what's going on, right? Is there something I need to change about our dynamic? But it's just a really nice way that you can kind of accomplish 3 things. The first is you can become aware of how many states of mind you're going through in the course of a day, right? There's a lot of fluctuation. You can also begin to see habitual patterns, right? So am I always checked out with my boss, or am I always excited and happy in a team meeting? Is there like consistency I see? And then you can also begin to reflect on, how did my state of mind impact those that were in the session with me, or my engagement, my interactions with others. So I think it's a really handy tool to get increasing awareness about, you know, being able to see patterns, habits, etc. The other thing I love about this simple tool with the numbers on the left side, events across the top, this is a great check-in tool to use with a team. So if you're just starting out a meeting together, simple, takes just a few minutes to do a go around and ask everybody, where are you, you know, and let people say, I'm a +2, a +1, a -1. You don't have to give explanation. It's just a way to kind of let people express where they are. There was a really interesting study that Google did years ago called the Aristotle Project, and they were trying to figure out what differentiates good teams from amazing teams. So they did reams of research, and what they came down to is the thing that differentiates excellent teams from just so-so teams is that every member of the team knows that they are going to have the opportunity to speak and to share and to voice whatever's going on. It doesn't mean everybody gets equal minutes. It means that in the course of a team meeting, I know I'm going to have that opportunity to have some airtime. And that was the key differentiator. And it was about creating psychological safety, so people know that they can voice what they need to voice, and their opinions and perspectives and thoughts are going to be respected. So this really simple tool is a nice way, just as leaders, that we can make sure every member of the team is getting an opportunity to say where they are, to share to whatever extent they're comfortable, but a really nice way that we as team members can support each other, right? So I would encourage you to test these out, right? Some of these tools you'll like, some of them you won't, but an opportunity to see how it works out for you. Okay, so as we've talked about, shifting from lower to higher states of mind can be difficult. And as you all talked about, we want to notice where I am, make a shift. If I can't shift, share a little bit what's going on. 4 things to think about as you're being aware and thinking through states of mind. What are your thoughts and feelings, right? Our thoughts, what is going on in our head, is going to manifest through our feelings. So be aware of, is there some negative self-narrative playing? Is there some negative tape that I'm running around? And if there is, time out, you know, get back control of what stories I'm telling myself. So be aware of your thoughts, your feelings. Pay attention to physiology, right? Do I have sweaty palms? Is my face flushed? Is my heart palpitating? Am I in some state of coming to anxiety? So be aware of that. This is called somatics. It's kind of what's going on in our body. Or conversely, am I like slumped over in my chair? Am I struggling to stay awake? Am I completely just checked out, right? Important to know, because that's going to signal, again, a state of mind. Be aware of the external environment. So what are things that are just coming at me from who knows where that I now have to flex and deal with and pivot, right? So be aware that those forces from outside come in and ding on my state of mind too. So that's where I have to kind of practice resilience and pivot well. And then lastly, pay attention to our health and well-being, right? There's just reams of research that tells us getting enough sleep, right? Eating the right foods, keep our energy levels balanced. When we're in a bad state, exercise. It's like one of the best ways to trigger our system back to that kind of more happy, well-being kind of state. So taking care of ourselves, right? Much like we keep reminding ourselves to do as we're in this pandemic world, okay? So nice work, you all, thinking about states of mind. I hope there is some goodness that you'll carry forward here. What I want to move to now is thinking about the 4 real pillars of this actionable authenticity plan. And this is values, purpose, vision. And those 3 are the place we really want to hone our awareness. We want to get crystal clarity about what is it that I value as a leader and or as a team. What is my purpose? And I'm talking higher purpose, not my purpose is to come to work and lead 4 people. No, my purpose to achieve what? What higher purpose? Our vision, have it so crystallized so that we're articulating it in our own heads and in what we say, and that it's so vivid that we can taste it, feel it, touch it, see it. And through that awareness, coming to an identity that we really crystallize around, which then enables us to make those things actionable. Okay, so those are the 4 pillars we're going to spend a few minutes on here. A couple of quotes I really like here. I just wanted to have a moment to share that have kind of been sources of inspiration and thought for me. And I think sort of the central theme here is dwelling in possibility, right? To be open to what comes, to recognize that change begins with a single step, to know as leaders, everything is choice. Do I choose to be happy in this moment, or do I choose to be and stay below that line? So much of what drives us is that state of mind, okay? So we're going to move forward here. I have a simple question for you that's not simple at all. But the question is, if the people you lead, both formally and informally, had only one word they could use to describe you, what would you want that word to be? What would you want that word to be? So take just a minute and reflect on that. And if you're following along on worksheets, this is on worksheet 2, first question on worksheet 2, and it's to kind of try to zero in on what's that leadership aspiration that you would want people to use to describe you, okay? So hold that question in your mind. We're going to come back to that when we go to our last breakout session. So if you don't have a word that comes to mind immediately, keep percolating, and when we get to the end, we'll have another breakout, okay? So where I want to shift to now is on values. This is really the first pillar, and this is where it's critical for us to leaders to know what are the enduring beliefs that ground me, that are the non-negotiables, as one of you wrote on the screen. These are the principles that are intrinsically important and that will guide my decision-making because they are such an integral part of who I am and how I think about where I go and what I do. We all have individual values, obviously. I would submit to you that one of the real opportunities we have as leaders and as team members and as influencers is to engage with others on our team in landing on team values. I want to share a quick story with you. This from the federal sector around the power of values and having teams of people create values together. So this is several years ago. I was working with a federal agency at the executive level, C-suite level, and they had come together to collaborate as union leaders and management leaders. That's oftentimes when we think about union and management, we're not thinking about collaboration, but in this organization they were. And this team had been at it for about a year, and they had really coalesced. They had a monthly leadership team meeting where they came together. They talked about their shared interests, how they could move their organization together forward really powerfully. And they were making really, really good strides. And then they had an incident where national media attention, negative media attention got focused on this agency. And I don't just mean the Washington Post, I mean national headline news, because it had become known that some of their employees had been sleeping on the job. Some of you will remember this incident, but we're not going to name names. So it had come to light that some of these federal employees had been sleeping on the job, and it was a big brouhaha. And this amazing leadership team, in spite of their work, the executive leaders under so much pressure, and you all know in the federal sector, when you get negative national media attention, there's a whole lot of knee-jerk reacting that goes on, right? Well, that was the case here, right? So the executive leadership for this function of the agency took some immediate actions, because when they looked, they realized that they had people who had been working 20 hours at a stretch. And so even though they didn't have, right in their pocket of the organization, they didn't have people sleeping, they were subjecting people, or people were being subjected to working really long hours. And so their knee-jerk reaction was to put out guidance that says, you shall not work a 20-hour day. And that was their way of putting a policy in place to assure that they would not be under the spotlight of having this kind of thing happen. So their reaction was well-grounded and well-intended. The downside was that they didn't notify their colleagues and on the union side. And the union and management team had agreed that their value was that we're going to collaborate. And they had codified that collaboration by saying, we're going to have a group norm around this that says no surprises. And they had actually written that into a group norm as part of how they were going to operate as a leadership team. So you can imagine when management had the knee-jerk reaction, when they issued a new policy and it impacted employees who had come to rely on that overtime pay, and now they're having that limited with the stroke of a brush or a signature, the union leaders got really upset. They reached out to the management people, said, hey, what happened to no surprises? And as fate would have it, that very next day we were having our regularly scheduled monthly meeting. So as you can imagine, there were a lot of fireworks, there was a lot of angst, and really robust discussions, shall we say. But the good side of this was that those leaders came together, they talked through what happened, and because they had that agreed upon value, the leadership was able to say, in the heat of the moment, I failed to uphold the value, that I do believe in, and explained what happened. They went on to have a really rich discussion once tempers cooled, to talk about what had gone wrong, what had happened, to deconstruct, to reconstruct, to take away learning from that incident, so that they, instead of falling apart, they came together stronger. So it was really a beautiful illustration of the power of having values, of having written agreements about how we want to engage with each other, our value system as a team, that when they ran off the rails, they had something in place they could come back and talk about and recommit. And that team went on to do amazing work. And I think the good side was, even it was a very difficult and unfortunate situation for them, it made that team stronger. So I say all that to say, if you don't have values that you're clear on as a leader, it's a good place to spend some time. If you are in a position where you can spend time with your team thinking about your group values, really powerful thing to do. And here's a tool I want you to think about. So this is 40 some values. All of them are amazing and important. This comes from the Leadership Challenge workbook by Hosner and Kouzes. Great publication if you're not aware. It's also in the reference materials. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about, if you could only pick 3 of these amazing values, which 3 would you pick? Which 3 would you pick? Take just a minute, reflect on this list of values. If you are on a phone and not able to see, just write down 3 things that you think are your most important values as a leader, or your most important values as a human being, whatever lens you'd like to look at it through. So just reflect for a moment. This, again, if you have the worksheets, this is on page 2. And what I want you to do is choose just 3. That's the hardest assignment of the day. Okay. when you're ready, let's use our annotate tool and give me a show of where you landed. Honesty and integrity, great. I'm curious to see if we have any groupings that emerge. Communication, beautiful. Honesty again, empathy, trust, dependability, teamwork, wisdom, some more honesty coming through there. Lots on communication, quality, beautiful, respect, influence, decisiveness, truth, productivity, bleeding over into respect. See, when you just circle, you get to claim 2 of them, right? Decisiveness, competence, lots of check marks on communication, really important as we think of ourselves as leaders. Honesty, beautiful. Trust again, quality again. Yeah, communication circled, great. Teamwork, right. Open-mindedness, somebody got a nice bold blue marker there. That's great. Flexibility, truth, trust, empathy. Yeah, hard to pick just 3, isn't it? Creativity, great, great. So imagine the power of having this discussion with your teams, right? And if, as a team of saying, if we could only have 3, you can have 5, you can have 6, you can have however many you want. But to start the group somewhere, really zeroing in on what's important to us as we do our work, as we move forward with our mission, okay? Nice work, team. Thank you. Lots of great commonalities there. I would say probably honesty and integrity might be the big vote getter, right up there with communication. Trust got lots of votes. All of these, all so good, so good. So thank you all for sharing. Jen, if you could clear that, capture that for us and clear that, thank you. So beautiful work, you all, thank you. What I want you to think about is doing that exercise with your team. It's simple. You've got this worksheet in the handout. Give it to your team 2 weeks before, right? You're having a team meeting. Ask people to come in having completed it and have some dialogue. Facilitate discussion. See if you could land on group values. It can be really powerful to a team's functioning, okay? Here's the even harder part. The next sheet in your handouts is this from to worksheet. And at the top, I want you to write your top 3 values that you just landed on. So I want you, even if you don't have the worksheet, just hold your top 3 values in mind. And here's what this worksheet helps us to do. It helps us think about what are my observable behaviors that the people I lead would see me exhibit if I were embodying my values day in and day out, okay? So let me give you an example. Several of you said communication. I want to be the leader that models communication. So if I am somebody that's embracing communication and what my team sees is every day I come roaring in the office at 8:30 and I go straight to my office and close my door because I've got a 9 o'clock call with the boss and I've got to get myself ready in those 30 minutes. Does that look like a great communicator? Maybe not. See where I'm going? So it's the how people see you spend your time. What do they see you focusing on that tells them what you most value? Okay, so this is a kind of I like to think about this as a fly on the wall exercise. So if I've said my 3 values are communication, honesty, and reliability, what am I doing with my actions throughout the day that tell people I really live those beliefs, I really live those values? So the first set of questions here, how do you spend your time at work? So what do you do with your day in your current state? The left-hand column is what do you do today that supports your 3 values? The next set of questions is what do you do with critical incidents? So how do you respond in an emergency? When your hair is on fire, right? When there's some big proverbial thing has hit the fan, what do you do and how do you show up? What would people see if they were a fly on the wall when your hair is on fire? Next set of questions, what are the stories you tell? What are the topics you talk about? Are you talking about your amazing successes, the great things you've accomplished? Or are you talking about the team, right? So what kind of stories would they hear you relay? And then lastly, what's the language you use? So what words and phrases would the people that you lead or the people that work alongside you, what would they hear you say? Spoken in what way? Would you talk a lot about me, and I, or would you be talking about us and team? Would you tell people what to do, or would you ask them how they think it should be done? Would you use words like, yeah, maybe we'll do that? Or strong words, yes, I can commit to have that tomorrow. All right, so the left-hand column is all about thinking about those 4 things as I do them today and how well they reflect my 3 values. And you know where it's going. On the next side, the right-hand side of that sheet, it's to think about what could I do in the future that would let me better show up as the leader I aspire to be, okay? So this is one of those exercises that take some reflection and some time and thought. So I give it to you to think about, carry forward, use it with your team, right? Once you all land on values, perhaps share it with your team. It's good fodder for a group discussion, okay? So we spend time on values because this is who we are at our core. So we want to get really, really focused so that we can move toward being authentically actionable, right? All coming back to point at that. So here's a not so simple question. And these again are in your packet. This is on worksheet page 3. And these are questions about who you are, right? And they seem kind of, I don't know, maybe a little deep, maybe not. But anyway, things like, what did you love to do as a child? You know, what activities and tasks engage you the most? And the reason I want to put these to you to think about is I think about as we mature into adults, we go through a process of being socialized, right? We go through a process. Life teaches us the things we do, the things we don't do. It teaches us the shoulds and the ought tos. It teaches us that sometimes things we want to do aren't appropriate. I think about kids. Like when I watch children, I love watching children. I don't have any of my own. So when I watch them, I'm amazed. Because what do? They run everywhere. They have like this boundless energy. They're just like, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to run. Why would I walk? Well, at some point, that gets beat out of us or taken out of us, right? You don't see adults going, I'm just going to run here and then run there. So it's like those sorts of things. You're like, well, what is it about the way that we're brought up and socialized into this world that we lose some of that passion? So these are questions that are designed to help you think about, at my core, you know, what did I love to do as a child before anybody told me I shouldn't or I couldn't? What activities do you love? And this is really just about getting at that important question about your identity, right? So who am I as a person? And having that awareness of what my gifts are, what my passions are, and also what are areas I need to work on, right? What are my blind spots? What are my warts, okay? And then articulating the higher purpose. This is about being able to speak it into the world, right? Speak it into the world so that others can understand and hear and know what matters to you and where you're headed. So again, it's about what's the higher purpose for my team? It's about asking yourself questions like, why do we exist? And carrying that forward and embracing that in how you go about your work. And lastly, we want to spend a little bit of time thinking about our vision. So once we're clear on our higher purpose, then it's about acknowledging a picture of what that makes possible. When I'm living that higher purpose, what can I make possible? What can our team accomplish that's of the greater good, that's mission focused, that is ultimately what we know as people on teams. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And this is about leaning into that. So I know we're getting a little short on time, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'm going to go pretty quickly through this last piece here, and this around your vivid description of the future. It's being able to articulate what you see when you're living your purpose, when you're operating from your values, when you're coming at the world from that place of centeredness that we've talked about. And the tools I want to introduce you to here is called the whole self window. And this is a really powerful tool for really looking through and seeing self, and looking through and seeing the world as it is. And so I like to think about this as an evaluation tool. It's sometimes referred to as the wheel of life from coactive coaching. And this is sort of my take on it. It's a little bit different because it's more about using an evaluation tool and then overlaying it as a tool for guiding our path and giving us the ability to lean in actionably. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a really brief description of each of these 8 dimensions of the whole self window. And all I want you to do is to be thinking about, as I talk about it, what letter grade you would give your current level of satisfaction. If you're following along on the worksheets, that's on page 5. There's a duplication of this window that you can scribble on. So when we think about emotional, this is about feelings and authenticity. Is there baggage I'm carrying along? Is there anything on an emotional front that's kind of feeling off to me? Or am I feeling, you know what, pretty much my state of mind is above the line most of the time? Might be a nice parallel to think about that. The next is financial. This is where I would ask myself questions like, is my debt under control? Do I have some savings? Am I living within my means? This is really not where you want to ask yourself, did I win the lottery, right? Am I a multimillionaire? It's really more about, am I comfortable? Would we like more? Probably we would always like more financial stability, but it's about, am I kind of at an okay place with this? Or is it a source for great concern and angst for me? Okay. The next is material, and this is where you want to think about what things bring you joy, what things bog you down. Am I taking care of the things I have? Sheryl Crow has a song with a lyric that I love that says, it's not about having what you want, it's about wanting what you have. So it's a different way to think about sort of the material possessions and your level of satisfaction there. And then mental is about intellectual stretch, continuous learning. Are you always kind of keeping those neural openings firing, right? So learning new things, stretching yourself, keeping yourself mentally agile, if you will. Lastly, on this side is physical, and this is about self-care. Am I eating the way I want to eat? Am I having physical strength? Do I feel good about my appearance and how I show up in the world? Am I taking care of my doctor appointments, right? Am I attending to all those things that are about my physical well-being? Next is professional. So do you feel rewarded? Are you appreciated? Are you challenged? Are you valued in your work? Does it bring you joy? Does it bring you meaning, satisfaction, etc.? What's your level of satisfaction there? And then on relational, are you attending to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues? Are you getting what you need? Are you giving what they need? Are we having reciprocal, healthy relationships? Are there any relationships that I know are not where they should be? And is there anything I can do about that, right? So maybe that's an area that requires focus. And then spiritual is very individual. It's what does faith mean to you? What calms you? What brings you hope and peace? And is your spiritual house in order, if you will? Okay, so those are the dimensions of the whole self window. And so what I would like for you to do is just spend a moment and give yourself a letter grade on each. It's not about having straight A's. In my experience, as we go through life, at various times, some of these are more important to us. And it shifts, it iterates constantly. But when you think about where you are today, what is the letter grade you would give yourself on each of those dimensions? So I have often found that on some of these, I give myself a letter grade of B. Sometimes it's a C. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with it. And that's exactly where I want to be. The question I want you to think about is, are there any of these dimensions that you gave yourself a grade you're not satisfied with? So is there any dimension of your window that says, you know what, I really need to do something different here? I know for me personally, there was a time in my life where I would say 75% of my effort, time, energy, thought was focused in professional. And I had a great wake-up call to say, that's not it. That's not everything. That's not where I want to be. So the question for you is, in what areas would you like to make a shift? And what would move you toward becoming the me that you want to be? Okay. What would move you toward becoming the me you want to be? So I want to ask you to do a quick poll here using your stamps again. And let's do a heart for any that you felt you have a level grade A. Put a heart on any of those dimensions that you're saying, you know what, I'm in an A space on that one. Great. So we've got some people happy financially. Awesome. Happy physically. I am envious for those of you happy physically. That's awesome. So lots of hearts, right? Lots of people happy with their professional life. A big heart on our professional life. Great. Lots of people in each of the dimensions. Lots of people happy financially. Not as many spiritually, maybe. Looks like about 3 people weighing in there. But lots of us happy and we've got 1 person that's happy in at least 4 of the dimensions, right? And feeling really satisfied. So now what I'd like to ask you to do is shift your stamp to the star, the little gold star. And I want you to put a star in any place where you most want to make a shift. So maybe you want to do more with a particular dimension. You want to put more effort. Maybe like me, you want to spend less. I need to get less focus on professional. Okay. So it looks like a lot of energy around making a shift physically, more or less. A lot of energy around some relationships we want to tend to. Some people wanting to pay greater or lesser, as it may be, attention to their spiritual needs. And some people wanting to work on the financial as well. So the point is, we can all be in different places at any given time. There's no right one. The key to the window is it gives us a way to think about, where am I, right? Where am I today? What am I satisfied with? And what am I less satisfied with that I want to work on more? Okay. So that is the power of the whole self window. It's a lens into us. It's a way to evaluate what's my level of satisfaction. And it's also a way to say, okay, now I'm going to move to planning, right? So what am I going to do about it? Great. So where you want to make a shift, I want you to think about a specific action that you could take. A specific action. What could you start doing? What could you eliminate? What could you delegate? And what actions would move you toward becoming the person and or the leader you most want to be? So you can see on here these little sticky notes. This would be the things that at this point in time on my window I was aspiring to do. This window hangs in my office and it keeps me focused. And there's always stuff I want to be doing in each dimension, but there's always 1 or 2 that I'm really focused on. So the question I want you to be thinking about, and we're going to move into our breakout, is what specific actions would move you toward becoming the person or leader you want to be? Okay. So here's what I want us to do. We're going to come back to James Clear if we have time. Right now, I want us to go ahead and go into our group breakout. And Jen's going to send you into groups again like we did. I want you to reflect back on what was the 1 word you came up with when we started working together that you wanted others to use to describe you as a leader. Or if you reflect on the whole self window and you think about that identity of the me I want to be, the who you want to be, think about a specific action step you could take that would move you closer to fully embracing that as part of your core identity. Okay. So give some reflection time to that. So we're going to talk about when we go into your groups. What's your 1 word, your leadership aspiration And what are a specific step or 2 or 3 you could take to move you toward that as your core identity? And here's a format I like to use to sort of declare this into the world. I commit to whatever the action is. And then you want to insert the specifics, when you will begin, how frequently, for how long, whatever it may be, and then in service of, and that is why it matters to you. So an example would be, I commit to write, and at least once a day for the next week, that's the details, in service of proving to myself I can do it. Okay, I'm going to ask Jen, if you can, Jen, point us into breakout rooms. And are we okay time-wise, Jen, if we go a little past 1:30?
We're okay if we go a little past 1:30. If people are okay with that, please just join as you can. And if you need to move on to your next meeting, no worries. Please remember that this session is being recorded and will be available early next week, as well as all of the resources will be available on our website. And I'll continue to put that link in the chat.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Thank you, Jen. So we are short on time, so I'm not going to have report outs, but I just want to say how much I've loved working with each of you. I hope this has given you food for thought. The materials have worksheets that we've referred to, and at the back there are several articles and resources on the last page that I would refer you to, one of which is some really powerful work by James Clear, who talks about how to better stick to our habits. And he refers to these as identity-based habits. So once we land on something that's core to our identity, we can then underpin it with habits. It makes it that much harder for those, that much easier for those behaviors to really stick with us. So I hope you've found things today that will resonate with you and that you can carry forward. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you. And I just want to remind you some of the tools that we've talked about as relates to the 4 pillars: values, purpose, vision, and action. And you have all of these in your handouts. And I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you may have. And again, thank you so much for your participation and joining us for this time today.